Ladies and gentlemen, get your blue snow shovels, we're hunting some Wendussy. I'm Aidan Mattis, and welcome to the Lore Lodge. So, approximately 4 months ago, I shot to internet stardom by talking about how I believe that Teddy Roosevelt created the National Parks Service to hide the Wendigo from the American people, and I stand by that to this day. However, in that time, due to quite a bit of research, quite a bit of speaking with other various folklorists and whatnot, I think I want to create a video that goes more in depth onto specifically what the Wendigo is, because our second video we ever made was on what I was referring to as flesh pedestrians, which is creatures that fall under a certain umbrella like skinwalkers, wendigos, flesh gates, those types of things. And I think it's important to really differentiate at this point between what those things are. So this is going to be the first video in a 3-part series, part 1 of which will be the Wendigo, part 2 the Skinwalker, and part 3 is going to be based around flesh gates, the rake, some of these other newer, almost internet-based folk monsters that we have created. So to start off, if you've gotten this far in the video, you're probably not one of the people who's freaking out about hearing the word Wendigo, but I want to address that. A lot of people are of the mindset, of the belief, that simply saying the word Wendigo puts you in danger of being hunted by one. Now, in certain versions of the legend, within certain tribes and certain communities, they absolutely do hold that belief, but it is not a universally held belief about the Wendigo. So, me saying it, in my opinion, does not seem to put me in danger. It doesn't seem that that is a 100% rate thing. Now, is it perhaps better to not say the word Wendigo when deep in the forests of Michigan, perhaps? Yeah, it would probably be in your best interest not to do that, but hearing me say it through a YouTube video is not going to draw one to you. If anything, it'll draw one to me. But been doing this for a while now. I have yet to be strung up by a Wendigo. If I do get strung up by a Wendigo, I hope that he at least takes me to dinner first. But if not, you know, I understand. At this juncture, I think it's important that I actually describe the Wendigo to you. And of course, I am not Native American. I'm not of Native American descent, but I can read. So I went to Basil H. Johnston, who is an Ojibwe scholar and folklorist from Canada, or was. He died in 2015, not Wendigo related. But I figured I would use his description of what the Wendigo is. The Wendigo was gaunt to the point of emaciation, its desiccated skin pulled tightly over its bones. With its bones pushing out against its skin, its complexion the ash gray of death, and its eyes pushed deep back into their sockets. The Wendigo looked like a gaunt skeleton recently disinterred from the grave. What lips it had were tattered and bloody. Unclean and suffering from suppuration of the flesh, the Wendigo gave off a strange and eerie odor of decay, decomposition, of death, and corruption. This, however, is not the only description of the Wendigo. Some legends describe them as being giants with a heart of ice, or even as ice giants themselves. Some legends have them, being up to 30 feet, 40 feet tall. Some suggest that they grow in proportion to their last meal, so that they are always eating but never truly satiated. And this is the curse of the Wendigo. It is the reason this exists in Native American folklore, is that when you turn to cannibalism in desperate circumstances, you lose your humanity. You gain this superhuman strength and speed, and you become an apex predator, but you do it at the cost of your humanity, at the cost of being ever content again. Your stomach will always feel like you're, starving. It's a miserable existence for anyone that it happens to, and you can really only hope for the sweet release of death. And in this case, that will not come unless a Wendigo is killed. And a Wendigo can be killed in a few different ways. There is, of course, beheading. If you cut off a Wendigo's head, it supposedly should die. Now, this does not apply to other limbs. If you cut off a Wendigo's legs, for example, there's a story in which a Wendigo kidnaps a young boy, and then the boy's parents, and this is all Native Americans, the boy's parents and some other men from the tribe go to find him, and they find the Wendigo, and they cut off the Wendigo's legs, and then they go back to check and see if the Wendigo is dead a few days later, and they find him sucking the marrow from his own legs, which is just nasty. So, dismemberment, cutting off the limbs and the head, and then burning them. If you were to soak a Wendigo in gasoline and then light it on fire, that would work. There are some legends that suggest that white ash, much like with skinwalkers, will kill them, so a bullet coated in white ash or a knife coated in white ash. Some suggest that you have to burn the original clothes the Wendigo was wearing when it underwent its transformation. Some suggest that a red-hot blade will kill one. But the one thing that seems to be consistent here is fire. If you burn it, it will die. And in the versions of the story where the Wendigo is not a corporeal being or an illness or a curse, but rather a demon that possesses somebody and uses their body, in those circumstances, fire won't necessarily kill the spirit, but it will destroy the body and force the Wendigo to move on. The Wendigo demon, the spirit, forces it to move on and then inhabit somebody else's body. So it definitely doesn't solve the problem in that case, but it does push it on into the future a little bit. And then the final way that you can kill a Wendigo is, of course, as we all know, by whacking it in the head with a blue snow shovel. However, I should point out this is only theoretical and it has never been done. We're waiting on our correspondent in New England, Chad, to prove this for us. Chad, if you're watching this, we need the results. I should go into a little bit of detail as to exactly how one becomes a Wendigo, and there are two main schools of thought on this. One of them, the more popular one, the one that's portrayed in media most of the time, is that if somebody is in a desperate situation, for example, they're stuck in a cabin with their family and it's winter and there's a blizzard outside and they run out of food, if somebody in the family turns to cannibalism and eats their loved ones, then they will become a Wendigo. The other version is that it can be a spirit that inhabits the forest and preys on the weak and convinces and, possesses them and forces them to commit these acts of cannibalism. Now, from a psychological standpoint, there actually is an illness called Wendigo psychosis where people believe that they need to eat human flesh. This does often set in after circumstances of forced cannibalism occurring, wherein you're in a situation like that, you plane crash and you have to eat other people to survive, avalanche, blizzard, something like that. And it has been recorded numerous times since the 1600s. But it's possible that this is a separate event that simply was named after something else. But it could also be, it is a possibility that the Wendigo does not exist and that this is, in fact, a real psychological disorder. But with all of the stuff that I've looked into with the uncanny valley and the fact that humans species-wide have a very strong reaction to things that look near human but aren't human, I'm compelled to believe that we have an instinctive fear of something that was similar to us, but not us. Something that was something we really had a reason to be scared of. Not other tribes of humans, not corpses, but something that hunted us. So I think that in this case, this is a case of us looking at, cross-culturally, you've got the Wendigo, the Jotnar, the Strigoi, you have the Fomorians of Irish mythology, you've got all these different cannibalistic creatures from Greek mythology. Then if you go further east, you have, they have their own legends all throughout East Asia, the Philippines, in Australia, there's the Yowie, which is very much along the same lines. It's a different species entirely rather than being a human that turns into something. But the point is, there is a species-wide fear of things that are near human, not quite, and that sets people's alarm bells off. So you might be asking yourself, where is the Wendigo? Where does it live? Where do I need to be scared of a Wendigo? The answer to that question is most of the United States and Canada. The Algonquin people are the ones who spoke of the Wendigo, and these are people who stretched from the northern Appalachian Mountains all the way west, across the Great Lakes, into the Great Plains, and even into the Pacific Northwest. This is a massive cultural group, and it also inhabited the southern portion of Canada. So the Algonquin-speaking world was very, very broad. Now, Algonquin itself is more of a language group than a single language, and more of a ethnic umbrella than any one specific tribe. However, the places that seem to be hotspots for these beings now, in terms of reports of encounters and strange circumstances which point towards the existence of these creatures, you're looking at very specifically the mountain ranges as well as large forests. So, I say it again, many, many, many national parks would be the ideal place for a Wendigo to live and to hunt. It is likely that they live underground in caves or mines, and they seem to hunt above ground, often in broad daylight. This is not like a vampire where they have to be underground or inside at night. People will disappear from hiking and hunting and camping groups in the middle of the day with no explanation whatsoever. So it seems like whatever this thing is that's taking people, if it is a Wendigo, that would make a lot of sense. And this is, everything from Yosemite up through Yellowstone, over into, for example, the national park, which encompasses Helltown, Ohio, the Appalachian Mountains, the Adirondacks, just all over the place. And before you make the comment on the video, which I know a lot of you want to do, Appalachian and Appalachian are both valid ways of pronouncing the name of that mountain range. And I'll really quickly do a quick history and linguistics lesson for you here. People from the north speak a dialect of English that has been heavily influenced by Irish, German, and Eastern European language speakers. Now, in the south, you're looking at much more Anglo-Saxon and Welsh. So there's a different language group in each of these places. You get a lot more, a lot of languages that sound less like English in the northeast part of the country. And over time, this did contribute to the accent that we have in the north. And the word Appalachia, if you actually take it and you pronounce it as it is spelled, it is Appalachia. But it's named after the Appalachian Indians. So, if you're talking about the mountain range and you're reading it phonetically, it reads Appalachia. But if you're looking at it through a cultural context, it is Appalachia. Now, since both of these are correct, how should you pronounce it? Well, the answer is however you learned to pronounce it growing up. If you're from the north, like me, if you're from Pennsylvania, I grew up basically in the foothills of the Appalachians. I went to college for 4 years at Penn State, up nestled in the Appalachians. Everyone around there, everyone who lived there in Appalachia, because you got to remember, Appalachia stretches from Georgia up into New England. Everyone who lives in Appalachia in the north through to Ohio almost everybody pronounces it Appalachia. Now, if you go south of the Mason-Dixon line into Maryland and West Virginia and Virginia, you'll get a mix. You'll hear both Appalachia and Appalachia. And then as you get further south, into the deep south, into like Georgia, North Carolina, that's where you're going to start to hear Appalachia and just Appalachia. But the same works for the north. Up in northern New York, you're going to hear Appalachia and no Appalachia. So it really is, a spectrum. And I think for people to fight with one another over the pronunciation of this word is horrifically stupid, and people should stop doing it. Now, I will say that from what I'm told, in Ohio, it is majority pronounced Appalachia, and that is the only place where it's definitively wrong to pronounce it Appalachia, because Ohio can't do anything right. Some relevant recent events that I think could have had to do with the Wendigo would be, for example, the missing 411 phenomenon. If you go back and you watch our National Parks Revisited video, I think it's episode 16 on this channel, what you'll see is me talking about some very specific cases involving this. Dennis Martin, Chris Tompkins, and Thomas Messick. So these are all situations where the disappearance, the profile, fits what a Wendigo abduction would look like. A lot of these cases happen near cave systems. A lot of, the people are never found. You might have a shoe here or there, but the people themselves are never found, and they disappear silently without anybody in their group knowing what happened. So I think that those might have been related. But go check out that video for more information on the missing 411 phenomenon. And I think at this point, this about covers all the bases for the Wendigo. So check back in next week where we're going to go over the Skinwalker and how, yes, you can also say Skinwalker. There's a specific word you can't say in the mythology and the lore, and I'm not going to say it, but you're welcome to look it up for yourself should you choose. But once again, if you like this video, please make sure to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share it with a friend, check us out on Patreon, on TikTok. All of that's in that little link in our bio. And, oh, by the way, if you want to get a phone case that just sticks to the wall, that's pretty cool. Hey, that's pretty good. But anyway, you can get one of these using the link in that card. It is Gravity Case, and for everyone you buy, I get small money. And it really helps us grow, and it helps us pay the bills and fund the new studio that we're building. So please check us out there, and at the very least, tell a friend about our channel. We promise we'll be nice to them, unless they're from Ohio. Once again, I'm Aidan Mattis, and thanks for stopping by the Lore Lodge.